All right, everybody, welcome back to the Klein Owner Series here on MLB The Show 24. As you can see, we are currently in the year 2024 again. The reason for that is I did not know that you had to turn the GM contracts off. And because I did not turn it off and I did not hit the goals within the 3-year time frame, I was not given the option to go back to the Angels. I could have went ahead and just, began rebuilding some of the teams there, which I guess when reading Reddit, it looks like they tend to give you an option to head coach, to be a GM for a team that just won the World Series, which at that time was the Kansas City Royals. They had some other teams there that are interesting, but I don't really care for that stuff. Just like I do with the Giants rebuild, I enjoy kind of building a team that I'm a fan of. So unfortunately, we had to start over. This is where we're at right now in the beginning of the 2024 season. The hope is that we can kind of speed this up and get our butts back on track to where we were. Because we were actually on a pretty good pace when it came to this game, starting in March, right? April, May, and it took us about March, April and May. About 2 months to get where we were in the year 2027. We're heading into that direction. So I figure we're probably going to be in that direction again. It'll take us a couple months to get there, but I want to play this out. I want to figure out how to be a better player in this game. And I've tried a couple different scenarios offline of like, okay, what if I just sim myself all the way to 2027? How would that look like? What would happen if I decided to do a little more commentary with the draft classes, show the end results? How would that look like? And the sims just did not feel good. Some I would not win at all by the time we got to the third year, which was kind of cool. But then and I had good prospects, but there was no, I don't know, it just didn't feel good. And then there was another one where the Angels ended up winning like almost 100 games in the first season, which I couldn't believe it in the sim. So when I think of things like that, I have to think about or consider like, will I have fun of simming it all the way to 2027? In the Madden series that we have now for the Salt Lake City Elk, it was kind of cool to be able to do that because we were going to build the team from scratch and have no players on the roster and kind of build it from the top, from the bottom up. I don't know if there's a way to do that in here outside of like cutting players and stuff. And it's different in baseball because if you cut a player, you still owe their contract until someone decides to pick it back up. So you're kind of screwed there. So the way I looked at it is like, okay, if we can't do it that way, we can't start from scratch. I thought about even creating a custom team and moving the team over to Salt Lake, where I have the other team at, and it just didn't match up. There was no way for me to get where I wanted to go without, making it look like maybe like a fantasy game or something, like a fantasy team of like going to the draft and drafting players from the beginning kind of deal. So because of that, I just figured let's just get our butts back over. Let's start over, and it's okay. We made a mistake. I'm very new to MLB. I don't play these games that often. Last year I played it and I didn't really know much about it, and I couldn't really get a series going there. This was the first time I was getting a series, and I was learning along the way, like, okay, this is how I can draft here. This is how I can do this or that. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to take the lessons that we learned. Okay. So the first lesson I learned is that when it comes to the playing of the game, I'm not really that good at it. Which I enjoy though. I love the challenge of being and getting involved on it. So what we're going to do is continue to do that, watch some games, play some of the games. But I also want to have the option to watch some. So maybe we'll kind of do like some like scout assessment on some of the players in the minor league, for example. Just kind of watch the game kind of go through and see what happens with some of the players that we're evaluating. Do the commentating on it as I do when I play the games already, but maybe we'll do that for certain prospects that are currently on our farm system. As the Angels have a poor farm system, we're only going to be looking at a couple guys in the first couple of years or so. So it is what it is in that space. The second thing I learned is that the drafting, I didn't realize the potential and the overall were totally different categories. It didn't click in my mind for some reason, even though that's exactly how the game is set up, is their potential, is how fast they grow versus their overall. I was always looking at it as like that's their overall, and their potential is to get to that other number, which is totally false. So I didn't realize that until I got to like the third draft. So because of that, I'm like, okay, I'm learning some things now when it comes to the draft concepts, and maybe we'll talk about some of the players that we will look at in the upcoming draft. So probably the first part of the year, I'll do that offline, because my goal is to get a pool of players and figure out what I would like to scout in that space. But then maybe when we get to like week 10 or so, we'll kind of just drop a little prospect highlight on some of the guys and just say, hey, here's where we're at with them. Here are 4 or 5 players that I'm looking at, maybe in the early round, or maybe a sneak pick or something that I'm thinking about maybe in the mid round or late rounds, because the Angels have a pick at like 8 or something. So we have a chance of having a very, very good prospect. So that's where we're going to deal with when it comes to scouting. We'll be able to do that a little bit more, but like I said, we won't really talk about the scouts until the prospects until probably like week 10 into the draft. The other part is the trading aspect of it. I want to break down the trading a little bit more about what I'm going to do. Now, how I treat trading for baseball is the same way that I'm kind of treating it when it comes to the Madden series that I do have. How we set that up on that end is that when we trade, if we are winning, our goal is to trade for MLB ready players. We're willing to give up some prospects to try to win now. When it comes to losing, the goal is to offload some contracts, give those players over to teams that are trying to win now. And I'm only going to be looking at teams that are in the bottom of the wild card race. So if they are like 10 games or higher away from that, so 10, 15, 20 games away from the freaking playoffs, those are the only teams I'm looking at. The chances of trading for a player at the top of teams that are winning, it just doesn't make sense unless you're willing to offload a MLB ready player for their prospect kind of deal. So we'll look at everything on our end. I would say we're not going to be able to offload Rendon as easy as we encountered in this last series, because Rendon's overall now is actually pretty high. He's like a 68. So we're probably going to end up keeping him for the life of his contract. And for realism purposes, I wish MLB The Show did that, but there's a no trade clause for his contract. Now, Tyler Anderson's another guy that I'm not a big fan of, but his OVR is actually okay. He doesn't have a no trade clause. So I will always look up a player before I decide to offload them, but I think it's only him, so I'm not really sweating it. So we'll keep Rendon, and that amount of money is something we have to deal with as a team, as far as the cap. You got to eat that, and we just got to wait until he's no longer ready to roll. So Rendon is a player that I may try to lean on, in the beginning of the year, kind of see how he plays. But Rendon is definitely one of the players, like he's one of those guys on the Angels that really doesn't want to play baseball. It's not his deal. He's collecting his cash, and that's a bad contract. That's the thing. He should have learned as an owner. So now that we are the GM here, we'll pay attention to the contracts, really focus on how we are going to construct that thing. You'll see a little bit more in-depth thoughts as far as free agents, and I'll just highlight those, saying, hey, here are the free agents that we are gonna go for. That which leads to the roster construction lessons that I've learned, which is you don't just like remove players just for the sake of removing players and trying to trade a ton of prospects or MLB ready players and just roll with that. I think you have to take, what I'm learning right now is you have to take into account the depth of each position. How good are we in those spots? And you can't just let go of a couple of players because their OVRs are low. You have to take into account just the ability for the team to have players to get on the field. So I did not think about the total amount of players that are in your franchise, which is 93 for MLB. So I'm really looking at that part right there. I'm paying attention to how many players that we have at certain positions, like the starting pitchers. We have 20 starting pitchers out of the 15 minimum, but they're not really that great. Right? So the reason why it's 15 is because the thoughts are that you're going to have 5 in the rotation. So you have to have at least 5 in the rotation for each level of your system, of your franchise system. So that's something that I had to realize too. So we're going to keep making sure that our depth's in a good spot, but I'll move players around along the way. And that's another thing too, is moving players down from from the show, from the majors to the minor league isn't actually a bad thing for certain players that you got, especially the young ones. So I did not know that. I thought that if I brought someone down, that can impact morale and stuff. I had no idea that that's actually not a factor in this game. Where in Madden, if you start moving players around, it impacts like their ability to trade with you or extend with you if you like move them down the depth chart and things like that. So little things like little nuances to this game are something that I just had no idea. So we'll try to look and work on that and play it along the way. But I'm going to keep the pace that I'm doing right now and how I did it when it came to starting this series. If we end up winning a little bit more, if this game starts looking like the RNG's rolling in our favor, I'll slow the series, the season down to see if we can make the playoffs in the next year or the next, or whatever year we're in. If we are losing, you'll see me speed it up and just go to the focus of long-term builds, a long-term building aspect, which is like, let's look at the draft. Let's see what we're going to trade based on how bad we are, and then let's move forward. So we'll see. We'll kind of feel it out and feel the flow. Like I said, when I did some of these simulations offline, sometimes we were bad, which I was really pumped about, but then I was like, no one's going to get a chance to see any of the draft prospects or really have a buy-in to them, right? Or any of the free agents I decided to bring in. No one's going to care at that point. I think the whole point is to build this out to where it's like, hey, we need to invest in these guys. So that's where we're at with it. So you're going to see us start over, unfortunately. That's a lesson for everybody. If you play this game, turn the GM contract off if your goal is to rebuild one specific team. If you want to bounce around from different teams and stuff, turning the GM contract on gives you that option to do so, which is kind of neat. If I was building something out like the Elk series, I would have done that here, but I just really want to build the Angels. I really want to see myself try to have a chance, like, could we get Trout a World Series within his contract? And what will he look like? If you look at the other players on our team, like, could we do this, right? And that's the thing here is, like, we have a decent amount of players that are over the age of 30, but we got a ton of players under the age of 30. So that's the thing about baseball is, like, you can keep some of these guys for the long haul, especially if they still got some of the qualities that allow them to do exactly what you want them to do. When it comes to team construction, you don't need everyone to be 100% star. You just need somebody to do what they're supposed to do their job. Need a closer. I don't need somebody to be crazy, but if they have a high clutch and the stats still show like they can still do what they need to do, I'll rock with them. I don't care how old they are. As far as the young players, I want to keep them in the minor leagues for as long as I can, because once you give them any type of baseball experience, then you have to go with the contracts that are a little bit higher than the $60K, where you can keep them down there. The 5-year rule too is definitely something I'm paying attention, so I got to take that into account of keeping players in the minors for no more than 4 years, and I gotta know whether they're worth it or not at that point. Otherwise, you put them in the 5-year draft, the Rule 5 draft, and you that like all these things are like tweaks and stuff I had no idea. I definitely want to learn a little bit more about this game. It's fun. I'm having fun. You hear me screaming, you hear me getting angry in this game when I can't believe I can't throw a strike and stuff like that. So that's what we're gonna roll with, man. We're gonna have fun. No matter what, I'm gonna enjoy this game. So we're probably around the end of June now for this reboot because of my mistakes. So we'll start the end of June, and hopefully June, July, August we'll be back to 2026, and we'll have a little more. We'll be back where we are. But I'm gonna take my time with this series where I can, speed up where I can, slow down where I can. But I just want to have. So that'll do it for me today. I appreciate y'all listening to this little rant that I had. But like I said, unfortunately, we are where we are, and but I'm just happy to figure out how I'm going to build this team out. Hopefully, I can be a little more successful with the players that decide to pick up. Well, if you like what you see today, you saw today, please drop a like, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and most importantly, subscribe to keep up with this series. We'll be back in the season opener in the next episode. I hope y'all have a good one, and as always, let's go Angels.